Today's video is going to change your life. Trust me. We will be discussing something very, very important, and it will change the way you have seen markets till date, you have realized market till date, and how you feel about markets till date. Before I begin with my topic, before I start the video, the first thing I missed, hi guys, and welcome to Nifty Challenge. All right. So today, before I begin with this topic, I want to show you one thing, and just think about it once before you proceed with seeing my video. And please, it's very important you watch each and every millisecond of this video and do not miss anything that I say, because this will give you an exact picture of what is happening in the world and why and what is happening in the markets and what comes ahead. Let me show you one chart. Okay. Coming to March 2020, there was a big fall in the markets. Let's see, before March 2020, Tata Steel was an all-time high of 505 rupees. Okay. What happened after this? Corona came down. The share came down to as low as 251 rupees. Now, is it genuine? Okay, I'll come to that. What is it today? Where is Tata Steel today? It's at 1041 rupees. Just tell me one thing. What has happened over the last 9 months, I would say? Because from March to June, there was a lockdown. The industries were shut. There was no production. What happened? What has happened that the share has doubled than its all-time high, what was in March, before March 2020? So, also one more thing. So that there was production going on, let us understand as an industrial part. What is happening in the industries? What happened in the industries? There was production going on. Everything was fine. The world was moving on its normal pace. People were going abroad. There was tourism. There was luxury life. There was weddings. There was everything going on in the world. And all of a sudden, a pandemic came, and the entire world, there was a big crash. Let's talk about Tata Steels in March. It came down. It fell bad. It was in this area. Just remember those times now, 9-10 months ago. Every news channel, every analyst was only telling you or talking to you about one thing. No, this market is going to go much worse. All this rise that is happening now, this rise I'm talking about, all this rise that is happening now, it is only momentary because people are buying, new fresh buying is coming, but the real thing will come when the Q2 results will come. Remember these words. Every damn analyst said this. The real things will come when the Q2 results are out. That is when you will know how much industries have been affected. Did anyone talk to you about the commodity and inflation cycle and this pandemic with relation to 1929 or 1979 or any depression in the world that has happened in the previous centuries? Nobody talked to you about it. I'll come to it. And I will also ask you one more thing. Go to YouTube. Just search Tata Steel share. Over the last 10 days, the share has gone up from 700 rupees to 1000 rupees. Find me one right person who has told you the right reason for why Tata Steel has gone up. Don't give me the bullshit of the company's earnings going up. Neither give me a bullshit of demand going up. Not at all. I will show you the financials. The company was making a total revenue, you can see right here. Do you think the revenue has gone up to 2,48,000 crore now? Maybe it has, but do you think 500 rupees share in February 2020, after a pandemic, within 9 months of production, after suffering of a lot of things, is worth 1,042 rupees? I will tell you the truth. It is worth even more right now, and that I will explain you why. But go to the YouTube and see these things. Who is telling you that why these shares rally and what is the reality behind inflation to metals and this cycle of commodity and this chain of macro and microeconomics that affects metals and commodities with respect to inflation when such pandemics come in the world. Okay, Slowly I'll move ahead. So coming to this period, the industries were shut down. There was no production. There was a rally. There were corrections. What happened all of a sudden that the share is massively rallying? Do you think the company is worth here? Okay, let's not wait time now, and I will come to my topic of what is inflation with respect to the markets. All right, so coming back to inflation. Now, before I come to inflation, let me remind you in your school what you have studied, or in general what people know about inflation. It's basically a rise in prices in general. So when the things get expensive, when the cost of living gets expensive, when general services, general food products and everything, the prices are increasing, this is what we call as inflation. Before I come to the topic, I need to remind you of the three different things that happen in the world and how the economist, how the analyst, and how the world has fooled you during the crash in 2020 in the March. When the crash came in 2020, everybody was terming that this is the same as the Great Depression of 1929, the same situation is coming. But it is totally an opposite situation what happened in the market in 1929 and what is happening presently in the market. 1929, during the Great Depression, it was deflation. Now first I'll explain you, I hope you already know the basic economics, and I'm not going to explain you in detail about the general definitions and the inflation cycle in itself, which you can definitely Google out. I'll explain you how is it related to the present market and what is coming and what should you do. So basically what happened in 1929 was a deflation, and what happens in deflation is basically an opposite to what happens in an inflation. In deflation, basically there is a very big drop in the demand. There is no demand in the market. The prices drop because there is no demand. Because what happened in the Great Depression, people were dying like anything, people were bankrupt, the economies were overheated, and then all of a sudden everything crashed. And then people committed suicide, they were literally gone, and the crops prices, the commodity prices, everything's were falling like anything because of deflation. Now this is what is known as deflation. What happened in 2008? In 2008, what came was a recession. Now recession is totally different than deflation and inflation. When this crash happened in March 2020, 1,000 people were giving big views, and somebody was relating it to 1929 depressions, and somebody was relating it to similar to what happened in 2008. However, it was not even 0.000001% of what has happened before in the market, what happened this time. I'll come to it how. So what happens in a recession? A recession is basically nothing but when two consecutive quarters of an economy have a negative GDP growth, you call it recession. Simple. Very simplest definition somebody can tell you is this. Then when two consecutive quarters you have a negative GDP growth, you call it a recession. Let me come to inflation now, and the most important topic that is going to affecting the present market right now, and I'll explain you how has this come about in India, and it is highly planned, and how it is right now affecting the markets and increasing. Understand it better, and also not to sorry about that. Sorry about the break. Not to take direct names of anybody or direct blames to anybody. I will just tell you what is the ground reality that has happened in India over the last 1 year. So what happened in March 2020 when this COVID pandemic came? Everything was shut. The lockdown was announced. Now, just imagine yourself as a manufacturer. Suppose you are a manufacturer of a pump company. What do you need for your pumps? You need raw material and metals. You need copper for your windings. You need motor. You need electrical parts, and you need a lot of raw materials. His factories are shut because there is a lockdown. He is not able to produce. So what happens? The government gives him MSME loans. Now these are all a part of this monetary cycles. If you are an economic student, you will definitely understand how these things are controlled by monetary cycles. So this guy has shut down his factory. He is not producing any pumps, and for 2 months nothing happens. Slowly the orders come. He starts producing. Now he starts producing pumps. He needs raw materials, and he is working with half the capacity. Now he is a helpless man. He is blaming the government. Everybody is blaming the government. and everybody is like, I'm not able to produce, there is nothing in the market. But in ground reality, I'll tell you what happened in India. Nothing stopped. All the businesses were running, the gates were shut from outside and from inside. Most of them, I'm not saying all of them, most of them were still continuing to work. Now what people did, people in this time, especially the people who are manufacturer of raw materials, I'm not talking about the importing stuff, I'm not talking about the exporting stuff, but I'm talking about in general use. So what people did during this times, they started manufacturing and they started stocking up. They created a situation in the market which made you feel that there is a shortage. This was a reality that has happened not only in India but in the entire world over the last 1 year. The manufacturings were going on, the products were being produced, because this is not one industrial pump guy who is doing it alone. This was a chain. It was started by the first parent company itself. The person who is doing the mining of the metal has started it in itself. He's doing the mining, but he's having a big scapegoat behind him, which is called COVID-19, and he can ask, using this scapegoat, he can ask for loans, he can ask for tax exemptions, he can show a lot of things. This is what business is basically. All of this business is like this. You find ways to evade yourself from tax. That's, everybody is doing the same thing. So he is not getting the supply of the copper. The copper winding guy is not getting the supply of metal, and the metal guy is saying that there is no mining in the mines already happening. It's a full chain. In reality, everybody is getting, they are paying more for it because there is no supply. Now this is opposite to what has happened in the past. In the past there was no demand. This time there was no supply. You understand the difference of what has happened in the crashes in the past in the world and what happened this time. This time it was no supply situation. Actually there was, but people, even if they were getting things, even those who had the materials, even this pump guy, if he had this raw material with him, what he was doing, he will manufacture the pumps, he was stocking it up, because he knows that there is no supply coming of copper. It is not only to him, it is to his competitors as well. So this is a chain that continued. You remember this time in yourself. Even the departmental stores were getting empty. There was not even a Maggi available. There was not even tissue papers available all over the world. This was the first indication of what is coming in the market. So this continued, and they created these situations all over the world where you started having a shortage of supply. Now this is still going on. Things have improved. Lockdowns have moved on. Manufacturing is on full productions, but they are controlling the supplies of everything all over the country. Now this is what is increasing the inflation in the country. Now let us go to and see the figure of present inflation, what is in the market. I just had a search on Google of inflation 2021. See, as per the latest news in March, CPI inflation rises to 5.52% in March 2021. The All India inflation rose compared with 5.03 in February. In just 1 month, 4.6. And if you see the values, now this is not the correct value. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about this right now. Okay, so basically what happened now this inflation is basically going to affect a very few sectors in the market. That is what my main concern of the video is, not to guide you about inflation and what has happened, but this is the ground reality, what has happened in the country. And this is going on not only in India but all over in the world. If you have noticed, since March 2020, the first sector to have rocketed like anything was metals, and metals are the first beneficiary of such situations when these things happen, because people have created an image of shortage of supply all over the world, that there is no production, there is no raw material, there is no supply. And this is going on in many countries and many places all over the world, and this is how the inflation is going higher. Now, to control the inflation, if you will read more about these things on the on the government part, there are monetary policies which control inflation. And what they do, basically, you increase the interest rate, because what happens when the inflation goes up, the value of your currency lowers, and it also benefits these borrowers, because today what money they have borrowed from the government, 10 years later, if the inflation has really doubled, they have to pay a much lesser price compared to the same what they have borrowed, because the value of that money has really gone down. And this happens when the countries are printing money, and this is what has happened all over since last 1 year, that countries have printed money like anything, and that is why the inflation is rising. Now this is one of the main reason why steel, metal and all these sectors have risen like anything. Now, this is the reason why Tata Steel is so up. This is the reason why Hindalco is so up. This is the reason why Nalco is so up, why SAIL is so up. It is not only because of their excellent quarter earnings, or they have just done some deals and all. These are all bullshits. They are just trapping you with news. No news channel will tell you such realities of what is actually happening behind, what is actually the reason why are metals rising, because they already know where the world is heading. The world is heading into a stage of hyperinflation. If you read about Zimbabwe, if you read about Venezuela, what happened to these countries, how they were not able to control, how they went into this hyperinflation. These are the reasons, because they printed money like anything, and they were not big manufacturing countries. Although this is not the state that is going to happen within India, because India is a country who in itself is self-dependent, and we have a lot of things to manufacture. This is what is the reason why Japan is one of the country who has printed the maximum number of currency in the world, and still they have their inflation in control. So coming to this point, but now to control this inflation, what government has to do, they have to increase the interest rate. Now if you remember my previous videos around a month or two back, when I gave you my view of the Indian markets, I gave you a view of Nifty to come around 16,000 in May. It did not come, because I was expecting these things already in the market. The bond yields were going up, and I also told you in that video that they will not be able to control this economy system unless and until they increase the interest rate. That is the reason the target did not come, because the interest rates are still kept in control. Now, since these interest rates are kept in control, I am making this video, because the only way you can control inflation, one of the most major ways, not the only way to control, is to increase the interest rates, which is not happening. They're rather considering to decrease, or they're rather considering to keep it stagnant, even in the Fed. But this is going to make inflation rise. Now, I will continue this in the next video, and I will explain you more about these things, what is inflation and how is it affecting. But just to have an advantage on this video as well, let us now tell you about what sectors benefit when inflation rises. So when the inflation rises, the first and the foremost sector that benefits is the commodities. If you have noticed from the last 1 week, the metals are rocketing like anything, and this has happened right after the Fed policy, because they have kept the interest rates unchanged. Now when they have kept the interest rate unchanged, people, smart, economically strong people, have already understood that inflation will not be able to be controlled when the interest rates are kept stagnant. This is the reason in the last 1 week, all the metal companies, all the commodity companies have skyrocketed like anything. Now please, if you have liked my content, do one thing. Go to this YouTube, have a search of the people who have given you a buy or sell on these steel companies without telling you this reality, and please make a pledge to understand that they are nothing but fooling you to sell off their own holdings, or to make intraday or small positional profits for themselves. Okay, I'll not blame anybody, and I'll not take any names, but I hope you are getting my point. What is the reality? Everything is a business for people. Okay, coming further. So the second sector that is most importantly affected with inflation is oil and energy. Oil and energy sector is a high beneficiary of inflation, because these are some units that will be in benefit when there is a shortage of supply. Okay, this is what oil is already going up. You can see the crude going up, you can see the metals going up, you can see the energy sector already going up. The third and the mild and the good beneficiary of having inflation up is real estate. Okay, see, in deflation, what happened in 1929, there was no demand Here there is no supply, totally opposite. I don't want to guide you more about it. So when there is no demand, the prices of properties fall. In this case, there will be a shortage of supply. They will say, I don't have cement availability. They will say, I don't have steel availability. They will say, steel is getting expensive, cement is getting expensive. The real estate is good, bound to go up. So the third beneficiary of this inflation is the real estate. And one more, I'll tell you, the one more beneficiary of this inflation are industrial manufacturings. The people with the big industrial manufacturings who are like leaders are very, very good beneficiaries also of the rising inflation. Now, I'm not saying that this is 100% coming, but it appears to be coming. And this is the reason why from the last few days market is really up. Also, banks are on the negative side. When inflation rises, it is not good for the banks, because the borrowers are actually in profits and people who keep cash are actually on a bad side. They are not in benefit of the inflation. The more and more you keep cash, gold is a very good hedge against the inflation you must keep. And coming apart from this, so what I would say right now is that you have to keep a good watch on the government and the policies, especially the Fed policies, and accordingly act in the market, because even when the inflation is rising, this is going to boost the stock market. Stock markets are the best performers during high inflation. Also, in the interest rates will change, and also that is why, and that is one reason I am not seeing market to be much down, and this is also a reason why I am seeing that market is still bullish, and there are many companies with way more potential. And it is very, very important that you are positioned in the right sector right now in the markets, because there are some sectors, because this is also one thing, when things are going on the upside, then people just invest blindly into anything without having any knowledge. So it's better you invest into the right sectors who are the beneficiaries of such things, and not get your money stuck into the wrong stocks and the wrong companies. And I will follow up with my weekly analysis very soon. And thank you guys. This will continue. I will update more. If you have any questions about these things, please feel free to send me a message on Telegram, and please feel free to comment as well. Thank you so much. I hope you have understood this, and I hope you have understood the reason behind this upside and the reason behind a stock which was 500 before March and has now gone to 1000 rupees. It is not without any reason, the reason I have explained to you already. Thank you so much. Please like, please subscribe, and please share with your friends. Thank you guys.